Today's lecture is going to be about Bitcoin, and I'm a little bit excited to be doing this because I've been trying to figure out Bitcoin for a long time. I've understood the basics, of course, but it seemed unstable and insecure at one point because I didn't really understand the technology. And so I pretty much changed my opinion about Bitcoin after doing the research necessary to figure this thing out. So let's go on with the lecture. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a currency. Even though that may seem strange because it's digital. It's a digital currency. It's in the computer world, in the online world. But really, almost everything we do nowadays is digital currency. Now, the difference is going to be, what's behind the digital currency. Do we trust the mechanisms behind the currency that we use? But our credit cards are a great example. We know our credit cards we use instead of cash. And we make electronic transactions when we buy something. And that, goes to our credit card. Most of us are connected to our bank account. So we don't have to ever see cash. We move, our bank account money, electronically wire the bank account money to our credit card. But it is, of course, more complicated than that. But still, it's all currency. It's all the ability to purchase or invest. Example is a stock market as well. We invest in the stock market. We used to get a piece of paper, but now we get electronic information. We don't even see that. We'll talk more about that as we go along. So Bitcoin currency, let's see what it is and what it's all about. Now, before we can understand Bitcoin, we've got to understand currency because, if we don't understand currency, we will never understand Bitcoin. So let me go through what we're going to talk about first. We're going to talk about currency as it is now, as we have known it for many, many years. Banks, we're going to talk about the banks, accounts at a bank, and ledgers at a bank. We're also going to talk about central bank. The benefits of decentralized banking or centralized banking. Actually, we're going to talk about them both. So that's maybe here I might talk about that in reverse order, but we will be talking about the benefits of decentralized or centralized currency. The benefits and the drawbacks. Benefits are good, drawbacks are not so good. And of course, security. Nothing's worth anything if we don't have security. And then finally, we will talk about the technology behind the Bitcoin. How we know that it's trustworthy. And my opinion, after reviewing this, as long as the mining process remains stable, then the currency will be stable. Now, the mining process we're not going to talk about in this lecture. Because it's probably complicated enough to at least have half a lecture just on mining. But it seems like a pretty safe environment, as safe as any bank, for sure. It's just a matter of whether or not the people trust the system. So anyway, we'll talk about the technology, and when we do, we'll be talking about hashing, which is a kind of we'll talk about that later. Blockchain, and that's supposed to be one word, not two words. Sorry about that. Supposed to be one word and supposed to be connected right there. And then probably the blockchain, all these three, hashing, blockchain, and distributed ledger. Now that's going to be hard. You may want to repeat this with me. Distributed ledger. Distributed ledger. Now, the reason I want you to pronounce that is because distributed actually comes from the word distribute. And distribute means to hand out or spread out. To spread out. Distribute. Now, but you put an ED on it and the pronunciation changes. Distributed. And and you need to be able to pronounce it because it's one of the most important parts of Bitcoin. Now, let's move on. Currency. We need to understand currency. We're going to get very basic because I want to make sure you can follow what's going on. Before currency, we traded. For example, we had cows and goats. One farmer needed a cow, another farmer needed goats. Well, let's just trade them. Let's make a deal and let's trade the goats for the cow. Okay, but as you can see, that's not very convenient. It's inconvenient, which I forgot to highlight. Not very convenient. And we can trade more than just cows and goats. But the thing is, when we're bartering or trading, then bartering and trading is the same thing. If we're bartering or trading, then we need to, well, I need what you have and you need what I have. But even if I have a lot of goats or eggs or whatever, and nobody needs them or nobody wants them, then there's going to be no trade that can take place. Plus, it's very inconvenient to be taking around eggs and cows in order to get what I want. And that's what buying things is all about. When we purchase something or buy something, we need something or want or desire something, of course. Okay. But so someone realized this is very inconvenient and we need to do something about it. So we invented currency. Now, currency is just a word for every kind of money. Rather than saying money, coins, paper dollars or dollar bills or digital currency or, whatever, diamonds or pearls. And we just call it all currency. Currency is something that I have that if I want to buy something, you will take it. And you want to buy something, I will take it. As long as the other person will take it, it's currency. It can be, what is something everybody knows? It could be a toothpick, I guess. I can't think of anything small, very small, but or a small oyster shell. I mean, as long as I give it to you and you'll take it and I get what I want, it's currency. Money, dollar bills, and coins. Now, by itself, money's not very useful. Goats are useful for food, especially, or milk. Tools are useful. I can trade tools with you and you can use them. As this guy is doing right here. Eggs. People are hungry. They want to eat. They probably eat eggs every day. That's very useful. So why would you want to accept, and I'm going to go up just a little bit here. Why would you want to accept coins as payments? Just go all the way back to the beginning. Somebody said we need coins so we can do business. And somebody said, well, you give me these coins. What am I going to do with it? What if Joe doesn't want my coins? If Joe doesn't want my coins, I'm just sitting here with 5 pieces of metal that I can do nothing with. Okay? But so people had to be convinced or forced to use money to make business, buying, shopping, selling, to make it all more convenient. And so what we have is someone originated the idea a long, long time ago. I believe 2,000 years ago. I'm not really sure when the first money came out. But what it did was some king or emperor or some form of government made a law that you must use money. We're going to make some coins. And if you want to purchase or buy anything, you have to accept, if somebody wants to, now you can still trade. If I want to give you eggs and you want my eggs, that's fine. Okay. But if somebody offers you the coins, you must accept those coins. So now we have a more useful system of business, and it's called currency. And what makes currency work in any system, whether it's old currency or modern digital currency, is the faith that people will take your money. Now, and that's why sometimes people, there was a time way back when, and I think right now or sometime recently, Sri Lanka had a money crisis. 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, I'm sorry, I've been around a while, but a very long time ago, Brazil in South America had a crisis and nobody wanted their money. I mean, you needed like $1 million to buy an egg. And that's the truth. You needed like $1 million to buy an egg. So the money became very useless. It was not useful. Nobody wanted to use it. So, people have to have faith in the currency. And that's it used to be based on gold. We're not going to talk about that. The gold standard of money and currency, because gold has value. And if the money was backed and supported by gold, people would use it. But we're not going to talk about that today. Money is supported now by governments. Because basically, if you go to a government and you said, nobody's taking my money, I want to give it back, I'm not really sure how it works, but they're technically by law, somebody has to give you, has to be able to take that money, okay, and accept your money. So must have faith. We call this centralized currency. Back in the old days, it was the emperor, or a king. In the more modern times, it's our current governments that support each country's money. But each country controls their own money. By the way, centralized. This is called centralized currency. So what we have is one bank that's controlling the money. Now, it may not actually be just one building, but it will have one main building and some branches, whether it's a government bank or a commercial bank. That's a regular bank. A commercial bank is a regular bank where we put our money. So, but each country's currency will hold different values, and that's not convenient. So let's continue. So let's talk about some of the problems with centralized currency. It's not easily managed. The currency tends to follow the economic environment, or worse, it may even change the economic environment or cause an economic crisis. So it's going to follow the economy. If the economy is good and the economy is bad, for example, the American dollar, when the economy is bad, nobody wants an American dollar. Nobody's going to be trading for American dollars. When the economy is good, the American dollar does better. Okay, when the American economy is good, the dollar does better. When it's bad, it does worse. And every country is like this. But governments try to get involved and try to fix things. And what happens, and by the way, this photo here is a real photo. That's a Sri Lanka economic crisis. The guy has bread on his stick there. So governments might change interest rates to try to affect the supply of money or the value of money, especially the value. Everything is trying to change the value. Value. If something has value, you want it. If it has no value, you don't want it. Now, if they make the rates too high or too low at the wrong time, an economic crisis can happen. Not only the interest rates, but when they print too much money, it can cause an economic crisis. Now, when we talk about interest rates, that's the first bottom interest rate that the government charges for you to borrow money. And why that's important, in every country, most banks, now banks can still charge any kind of interest that they want to, but they're usually going to follow the government's interest rate. Some countries are forced to by a strong government, but most democratic governments maybe have some laws. But a real bank, a commercial bank, a people bank, can charge whatever interest they want, but they're going to follow the government. Okay? If the government messes up, makes a bad decision, everybody has to pay. Okay? So that's one of the drawbacks of centralized currency. Enter Bitcoin. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is not the only cryptocurrency. Okay. However, Bitcoin and other currencies are decentralized. Okay. And that means that the one person in power, such as a U.S. president who has a little bit of control over the top banker, that's a complicated relationship. The banker is supposed to be independent. The U.S. Federal Reserve Board chairman is supposed to be independent from government, and he is. But there's a lot of influence and power that comes from whoever is the current president, and senators and other people. But there's a lot of power in one place, the government. But Bitcoin belongs to the people. It's called distributed or decentralized. And so that everybody it's allowed to work in a free market environment, very much like stocks. So one powerful person or government is not in charge of everything. And just like when people believe the stocks are doing good, we have a good stock market. Well, when people believe that the Bitcoin market is good, we have a good Bitcoin market. If they don't, then we have a bad market, kind of like a bull market and a bear market. Okay, so let's move. We'll talk more about how the population is in charge. Bitcoin is only controlled by the transactions that are made and the people, between people, transactions between people, and the mood of the population who use it. Okay, and as I've said, we can think of the value of stock of Bitcoins being very similar to that of stocks. Now, what do we mean by transactions control? Well, if there's a lot of transactions, and you know, like, oh my goodness, recently, Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, he made some comment about Bitcoins, and he went and bought $1 billion, I don't even know. And suddenly, just his transaction alone caused the market to go crazy. People started buying Bitcoin like crazy. Then a few months later, he decided to sell. And of course, that changed, that particular transaction changed the mood of the people. And the Bitcoin rate started to fall and go down. So if there's a lot of trustworthy transactions happening, that's good. And not just Elon Musk, but let's take a big player out of the game. But if everybody's making a lot of transaction and it seems trustworthy, the transactions control what's happening. The mood, if people don't believe, or people are scared, or they have fear that they're going to lose all their money because they own Bitcoin, they're going to sell their Bitcoin and get out of the market, just like stocks. And that bad mood or bad economic environment still does affect the Bitcoin. Not so much so, of course, as a government, a full country economic turndown. Okay? And we'll talk about the technology that makes this possible. I know some of the text is behind my picture, but I'm going to try to remember to scroll up when necessary. So far, I have not been doing it good. I apologize. Another problem with centralized money is that it's possible for criminals to counterfeit or make fake money. It's not easy, but it can be done. And every country has to worry about that. Every single country has a big problem. Every single country, has a money police. Now, we don't call them the money police in America. In America, we call them the U.S. Treasury. In other countries, they have a different name. But they are the money police. Their job is to monitor America's money and find the money and take care of the money, or find the criminals if there's fake money being made or counterfeit money being made. Regular banks, commercial. I wanted to use the word commercial, but I realize a lot of people may not know that. Regular commercial banks, not the central bank, but even commercial banks, people banks, they're a problem too, because we put our money in banks to keep them safe. So we open a bank account. Now the banks have to do record keeping to know how much, money we put in or take out. They do this with what's called a ledger. There's a paper ledger here and there's an electronic ledger. So all of our transactions, every time I take my money, somebody writes that down, that's a transaction. Nowadays, they don't write, they put it in the computer. Every time I put money in a bank, the bank writes it down or makes a record. So all of my records, 2 weeks ago, I took out money. 1 week later, I put in money. 2 days ago, I took out money. Yesterday, I put in money. We group them, all those transactions together in what's called a ledger. Okay? Of course, banks don't use paper ledgers anymore. They enter the data into computers and they store it digitally. So, even though technically I can get all my money back in cash, but the record keeping is done on the computer. So if the records suddenly say I don't have money, it doesn't matter if I really have money. If the bank records say I don't have money, my money is gone. Unless that technical problem can be solved and I can prove that there was some sort of technical problem. So what happens? Why are banks not a good thing? Not have their own problems, not just the government, but also the people's banks, the commercial banks, the regular banks. Banks make mistakes. Sometimes banks close, and when we use this word close, we don't mean they close at the end of the day. We mean they shut down. They go out of business. I didn't really want to say go out of business because that's more like a person who sells ties. But they shut down. And if a bank shuts down for whatever reason in a super bad economy, if a bank shuts down, or war, as in other places, your money's gone. That's it. Okay. Now, sometimes a little bit of it is guaranteed by the government, but usually you only get back about 30, 40%, 20%. It depends on the government and the insurance. Okay. Give me a moment because I don't want to pause my video. Sometimes I pause my video and it creates problems. Most of the time it doesn't, but I don't want to take that chance. Banks have been hacked. We know it. Criminals can get into the system. They get into the computer system. They hack. Hack means to break into, to get into and do something bad. That's what hack means. You guys know that because you're technology experts. And of course, we call these bad people criminals. Also, bank employees can alter, and that's a word I want you to remember, alter. Alter means to change. Bank employees can alter the records. And that could be on purpose or by mistake, or people who are really good. It's called embezzlement, and we won't talk about that, but embezzlement is a crime. People play with money records. They get a little bit into a secret money account, and then suddenly they take all that money out and they run. And if you don't know what's going on at first, then you will lose your money. Now, that's kind of how money works. The regular bank system works. Now, let's move on to the Bitcoin system. They're actually cryptocurrencies. And I realize that I did use the word cryptocurrency, but I should have put that somewhere in the beginning. But I think I did once. But there are many kinds of cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is not the only one. But unlike banks, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. That's our focus. Unlike banks, Bitcoin automatically protects against the problem of weak security, the problems we've been talking about in a centralized system or a regular bank system. In fact, security was why the Bitcoin was created. One of the main reasons. Your transaction, once you make it, it's immediately protected with encryption and hashing algorithms. See, there's that word algorithms. We talked about algorithms in our last lecture. How does Bitcoin automatically protect? It does it in three ways, and we're going to talk about that. Hashing algorithms, blockchain technology, and distributed ledger. Distributed ledger technology, or a lot of people just simply say DLT, okay, digital ledger technology. Hashing, blockchain, and distributed ledger technology. These three things. Now, this is a simple lecture, okay? There's a whole lot of processes going on to validate and verify information in a Bitcoin system, which we call blockchain. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm making this very simple. An expert would say there might be a few things missing, but the basic concept is here, okay? Hashing, blockchain, and distributed ledger are the three primary ways your data, when your transaction, when you purchase Bitcoin, is protected. Bitcoin was created as a workaround to the problems of centralized banks and other financial institutions like commercial banks. So the creator who we don't know who they are. We have some, suspicion about who they might be. But it was a small group of people who created this system, and they did it because they thought, the best way to do business is face to face. But the problem with face to face or person to person is that sometimes, we don't have a central bank. We don't have lawyers. We don't have brokers and things like that. The simplest, safest business transaction is face to face between two people. So we want to take out the middleman and allow people to do business on their own, no matter where they are in the world. That also takes out the problem of my money is good and my country's money is good, your country's money is bad, but we're trying to make a deal. We won't have that problem. Okay, so we want people to do face to face, but the problem is, and by the way, we're going to use the word peer-to-peer often. The distribution system in the Bitcoin system is a peer-to-peer system. And we'll talk more, which means person to person. Okay? It's a little bit different from a straight person-to-person meeting because it usually refers to person-to-person connected by technology. But the problem is, like I just said, people cannot always be trusted. So how can two people do a business transaction and it be secure so that even if me and Joe make a deal, Joe tries to cheat, how can I prevent that? So that's what the Bitcoin system is about. Now, one way we could present that is to hire a broker or a lawyer or maybe even 3 or 4 witnesses to have 3 or 4 witnesses to watch us make a deal. Now that we've got those witnesses and maybe we sign a paper, all of us as witnesses, nobody can break the deal, kind of like a contract. We can do that, but we're trying not to involve other people. I want to be able to work with you and you with me. So one of the things that we'll learn later is that the Bitcoin system is a distributed system, which means every transaction is open to the public, technically. So you can't say, I didn't make that deal. Because once you make that deal, Bitcoin is so secure, that transaction, you cannot lie about it. It will never go away. And when the hackers try to take out that transaction, it immediately replaces itself. So it's that secure. So every time somebody tries to take a transaction out, it just falls right back in place. We'll look at that later too. So that's what immutable means. Secure means safe. Immutable means it cannot be changed. Okay, it means it cannot be changed. Once that record exists, it forever cannot be changed. As long as we have electricity, as long as we have a network, and we do right now around the world, then your data is going to be safe and it's going to be protected and it cannot be changed. And we're doing this with blockchain technology. Blockchain technology. If you can imagine a regular chain, a real chain, and how it's linked together, well, that's what a blockchain does with data. We're going to talk about it in more detail, so it's okay if you don't quite get it yet. In the blockchain, we're going to create sets of data which represents my and other people's transaction. We're going to secure that transaction into a block of data. And we're going to link that data securely so that link can never be broken and the data in the block can never be changed. That's blockchain technology. Now, in order to understand blockchain technology, let's move on. Let's start at the basic level of what we need to do to create a blockchain. But let's talk a little bit more about what a blockchain might look like. A block, here's a block. All of this, I can't highlight it, but all of this information here is a block. Inside that block are all the transactions that were accepted into that block. Just imagine that it's 1 day's worth of transactions. That's not technically how it works, but just imagine. All the business everybody did in 1 day makes a block. Okay? Now, we've got the next day we have another block, and the next day we have another block. What we're going to do is create a hashed link to connect those blocks, and now this block, this block, this block, and this block are now linked, and it can never be broken. If I try to cheat or break this block, that block will break. And once anything breaks, we will know about it and we'll be able to fix it, but or not allow it to happen. We'll talk more about that later. And now hashed link. I think we're going to have to talk about hashing. Is that where we are next? Each block in a blockchain has to be built from a hashed transaction. So we're going to the beginning. What is hashing? Now, hashing is simply taking a set of data and giving it a unique identity. A unique identity. Now, let's just call that a fingerprint. A unique identity like a fingerprint. We all know that there's no two fingerprints alike in the world. Okay, but one person has one fingerprint. But what's great about hashing is I'm one person and I can make many transactions. And those individual transactions will make their own fingerprint. More fingers than I have on my hand. So that my data, once it hits the system, it gets a fingerprint. It gets a unique ID. It gets a unique identifier. Okay? Unique means only one. There's only one. I'm a unique person. There's only one me. Only one Dr. Ray. Thank goodness. Okay? But we're all unique. We're individual. Unique identity. So we need that unique identity for almost everything that we do in a Bitcoin blockchain system. Did I say the word blockchain? I did, blockchain. In a blockchain system. Okay. Now, technically, your blockchain is your ledger, but we'll talk more about that as we go along. For information to get a unique hash, we have to run it through a hash algorithm. And there's that word algorithm. I told you if you're going to be in the field of any kind of engineering, you're going to have algorithms, and you need to know what that is. This is a hash algorithm. We can take a simple word like fox, run it through a hash algorithm, and it'll give us a number. We can get something as complicated as the red fox runs across the ice. Put it through a hash algorithm, and it will give us a different number, but the same length. So no matter how long the information is, and no matter how much the information changes, the unique identifier, the fingerprint, will only be so big. It depends on which hash algorithm you use. Simple hash algorithms are going to be like this, only 8 or 9 digits. More complicated hash algorithms are going to create 40 digits or 64 digits or whatever. So we need to know how that works. And when we're thinking specifically about a business transaction, that's an information. Let's take a look. Another look. Now, the Bitcoin system uses what we call SHA-256. I say SHA-256. There may be another pronunciation. I don't know. The SHA-256 hash algorithm will generate a unique ID. Some people say key, and some people say fingerprint. But it is really the correct word is unique ID. Okay. Now you can see we've got airport, but airport has been written it's been written 4 different times. But if you notice, they are case sensitive. That means that one time we have a capital A, one time we have a capital P, one time we have a capital A and a capital P, and one time we have no capitals at all. If we run that through the SHA algorithm, it's going to give us some unique identifiers. And I believe that's 60. I didn't count. I believe that's 56 or 64 characters. It will always be 56 or 64 characters. Now that's good because I can take a book. Let's say I type a book and I have a novel, a big fat book with lots and lots of data in it. I mean, 2,000, if I wrote a book, 2,000, that's too much. If I wrote a novel, my book might have 500 pages. That's kind of a big novel. But anyway, let's say it has 270 pages. And 270 pages of typed text. Well, that's, 20 million characters, 10 million words. We run that through the SHA algorithm and we will get a single code that's not larger than this. So that means now that I have the code, I can manage the security of this data, no matter how big or how small. I can manage the security with just the code. I don't have to keep downloading the book and downloading the map and downloading all this information and working with it. I've got my keys. I can work simply with these identifiers. Now we're going to build our own blockchain, because that's what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is a blockchain, or it's a distributed ledger. It's a ledger, a single ledger. We'll talk more about that. Okay. So Bitcoin is blockchain. It's a particular blockchain. There are many kinds of blockchain, many other organizations, I guess, or groups of people can own their own blockchain. You and I can make a blockchain right now. We can create our own blockchain for something, for sharing our own information in some way. And we could call that the Zhengzhou University blockchain. But Bitcoin is its own unique blockchain, which is a distributed ledger. We will talk about that more. But anyway, when we sign up for Bitcoin, we get a wallet. Let me take a breather real quick. Now, it's not a real wallet like the picture over here, okay? But it's how to say, it's an electronic wallet, more like the you see the picture of the cell phone. And what is a wallet? It's just a very clever way of saying a Bitcoin account app. If you think about it, we've all got apps. I've got an app that's strictly for my bank. Okay, I've got an app that's strictly for my bank. And it looks very much like a Bitcoin wallet. But Bitcoin is a different kind of currency. We want to have different names. And of course, you have to remember, my bank account, or my bank app links to my bank account. It's only as secure as my bank. But the Bitcoin wallet is only as secure as the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, to be honest, it's more complicated. If somebody makes a bad app, people can make bad wallets. So you got to be careful what wallet. You've got to be careful what wallet you use when you use cryptocurrency or any kind of a blockchain technology, because your app is a gateway in. But now people can't steal. They can't get the core. They can still get if it's a weak wallet, a bad wallet, people could make things troublesome, but they still can't break the Bitcoin code. Okay, so it's still pretty safe. Just have a good wallet. Don't buy your wallet at the night market. Okay, so anyway, you access, manage, purchase Bitcoins through your wallet. Access means if I can access something, it's like having a door, having an entrance, a way to get in, to access. Now, you won't actually be part of the blockchain until you make your first Bitcoin purchase. You buy your wallet. You think I'm part of Bitcoin. No, you're not part of Bitcoin until you make your first transaction. Once you make your first transaction, then you're a true part of the Bitcoin community, because it'll create a transaction, and that transaction will enter the blockchain. Now, there's a little bit of a complicated process we don't talk about here called data mining, that verifies and validates your transaction to make sure it's real and it's true. And then it is accepted into the blockchain with its own hash. So here we go. The transaction is the first step in building the blockchain, because it creates a transaction, and that transaction has to be hashed. Now, hash is the word that we're talking about. It's just an algorithm, SHA-256. It'll be hashed. It'll be created. And it will look something like this. Mark purchased this, the actual transaction, which everybody can see. That's what makes it secure. It's not secret. What we want to secure is that, number one, it never gets lost. And number two, nobody can ever change it. So we need a SHA code, and that's what we've got up here. Okay, that number's a little bit longer than I can mark. Okay, but there we go. Once Mark purchases 50 Bitcoins on the 25th of April, 2022, that's going to be, it's going to start its protection and security process by creating a SHA code for that transaction. So this is the transaction in reality, and this is what it looks like when it's been coded. Now we're going to add, we're trying to build our own blockchain, okay? Just you and me. So let's add 3 more purchases to our blockchain. Sarah purchased number 2. Sarah purchased 98 Bitcoins on the same day. Number 3, Joe purchased 49 Bitcoins on the same day. And that's important because there's a date, you have to have date stamps and times. It's actually time stamps, an exact time, as you know, in computers. And then 4th, Jane purchased 50 Bitcoins on the same day. Okay. And each of those have created a SHA code, SHA-256 code. I call them SHA codes for short. I don't know what the real professionals call them. So now it's time to build a Merkle tree. I forgot to highlight that in my PDF, but that's okay. A Merkle tree. And you're going, oh, great, something else? Well, it's pretty simple. It's just like we want to build a database of our transactions, and we want it to be secure. So instead of putting it in a traditional database, which may have security protection but can be broken into, we're going to create a Merkle tree. And the Merkle tree is very simple. See if I'm leaving anything out. We're simply, it's a way of hashing hashes. We're going to hash hashes until we have one single hash. And once we have one single hash, that will define our block. Okay? So the Merkle tree is how we describe stacking. I say stacking, it's not technically stacking, but linking our data. And we start at the bottom though. We start with Mark's transaction, and remember we got that long SHA number. I don't want to type that long SHA number every time. I'm just going to call it SHA-1. Sarah's transaction created its own ID called SHA-2. Joe's ID is SHA-3, very long number. We're just going to call it SHA-3. And of course, you don't really need to see that's SHA-4. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to pair. Pair means 2. We're going to pair 2. We're going to go through this whole system in Bitcoin. We're going to pair 2 people together. Okay? And we're going to take those 2 hashes and we're going to hash the hashes and get a new hash. Okay, so we're going to go down the line 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, and each 2 is going to create a new hash. Now we're only going to do with 4 people so we can see what's happening. SHA-1 and SHA-2, we run those through the hash algorithm, SHA-256. We run those through the hash algorithm, we get a new hash, SHA-4. Okay? SHA-3 and SHA-4, we're going to run. Oh, I kind of did that wrong because I've got 2 SHA-4s. It shouldn't be that way. Sorry. You get the idea. SHA-3 and SHA-whatever is going to be run together, and we're going to get a SHA-5. So we've gone up one level. We can't really call it encrypting. It's hashing. It's not encrypting, and it's not encoding. Encoding and encrypting are similar, but they're different. Okay. But now we have two SHA numbers. And we're going to run those SHAs through a hash algorithm. We're going to join them, run them through, we join and run it through the hash algorithm. We join, we run it through the hash algorithm. Now we're going to join our final two hashes, run it through the hash algorithm, and we're going to get a unique SHA identity. I don't want to type a long number, so it's going to be, call it SHA-6. Now we have our first block. And that one number allows me to securely manage all that data. Now imagine we had 500, 600 people. Now if there is an odd number of people like 599, there is a way, there's a logical way to take care of that. Okay. But, imagine we have 600 people or 10,000 people or whatever, and we're going to go 2 by 2 by 2, 2 by 2 by 2, 2 by 2 by 2, 2 by 2, and then 1. Once we have 1, we've got our block. And our block is the biggest part of our blockchain, but we're not finished. We've got to connect this block of information to another block. Now this is going to be different. We're not going to continue to do our blocks in the SHA. We're not going to run them through the SHA. Rather, we're going to link the secure code to each block. The first block is going to know the name of the second block. Yes, the second block will know the name of the first block. The third block will know the name or unique identity or fingerprint of its previous block. And it looks something like this. Okay. Now we just created our block 1, which has a SHA. I said SHA-1, but now I'm going to call it SHA block 1. That's its unique identity, its fingerprint. So all that information plus its fingerprint is in block 1. Block 2 is, but it's not connected to anything because it's block 1. It doesn't need to connect back to anything. We call this the Genesis. The Genesis block. Genesis means beginning. Now, block 2, however, once block 2 has been created, there is a block 1. We need to connect back to it. Okay? So you see that connection? So we have just linked these two together. Now we're not going to keep linking the old links to all the new links. Kind of like before, we tried to take everything together until we built one link. This is a little bit different. We're building a chain. Remember we looked at a chain? We're building a chain. So block 1 is connected to block 2. Block 2 is connected to block 3. And block 3 is connected to block 4. Now, why is this important? Because if anybody makes any change by hacking or losing, or just, the data could burn or get destroyed, whatever. Now, this is called a distributed ledger. We're putting all this information in other people's hands. We'll talk about that in a minute. This blockchain or distributed ledger is securely holding our data by the links. If I even change one dot in any of the blockchains all the way up to 1 million, if I make a tiny change, it will break that whole chain. It will break the whole thing. You cannot change that data. Because it's distributed, everybody will know that somebody tried to break in. Now let's look at more on that. Think of a blockchain as an open database. It's not really a database that we get into definitions here, but don't worry about that. Just think of it like an open database that's never changing the original information, the original The first information, once it's been created, once it's pulled into the blockchain, it will never change, like the roots of a tree in the summer. It will never change too much. Okay. However, it's still constantly growing because the old data will never change, but we are constantly adding new data. If you think of it like a tree, I know that roots grow, okay? But let's just imagine just a really old tree that the roots just don't grow so much anymore. The roots don't grow, but the leaves do. And the leaves would represent all the new data, okay? In the spring. Now, don't think of the life of a tree. The roots will grow and the leaves will grow. But if we're just thinking about springtime, the roots are not going to really grow, but the leaves are going to grow. And that's how a blockchain works. The original data is safe, it's secure, it's immutable. Cannot be changed. Immutable. All right. But there is a new problem that we have. We've created our blockchain. Our blockchain is on our computer in our store. Let's say our Gensho University blockchain. We got a copy of it in the computer room. That I don't know where the computer room is, but let's say we have some mainframes, some servers. Okay, we put the information on the computer servers. We have more than one server, I'm sure. So let's imagine that we backed up our copies on 10 different servers. So we have the original blockchain and we have all the copies of the blockchain that are, of course, exactly like the original because we're talking about digital. Digital means exactly the same. But what happens if there's a bomb or an explosion or a fire that burns that one building? Our data has been lost. That information has been lost. What if somebody built with quantum technology? Now, this is right now, people think Bitcoin blockchains are unbreakable. And come on, they really are, but it takes so much computing power. But what happens when we invent artificial intelligence on a quantum computer that can very fast and accurately handle all the computers in the world in a few minutes? Now that day might come in 40, 50 years or 20 years. And so somebody might actually be able to break our blockchain. It is possible. We can lose it, it can burn, or somebody can break that blockchain. So we went to so much trouble to make that data secure. What are we going to do now? That's the distributed ledger technology, the distributed information. Okay, a ledger is an account that represents all the information. A ledger is a database for you tech guys, right? I have a ledger in a bank and I keep putting everything that happened today in the ledger. That ledger is technically supported by a database. So when we talk about ledger, we're talking about database, but just handling information, not like a real, I forgot what we call those databases, linked databases, I suppose. What if we had 100,000 copies of that blockchain that we created at Gensho University? Our Gensho University blockchain, we created 100,000 copies and put them in different locations all over the world. Now that means if anything happens to one copy, it doesn't matter. We got 999,000 other copies. And the system is always watching, not the people. The system itself is designed to keep watching. And if somebody loses a ledger or tries to put one back or whatever, the system will say, oh, hey, you're not our ledger. You can't come in. You don't look exactly like the other 100,000 copies. If you don't look exactly like the 100,000 copies out in the world, if we compare, then you're not our blockchain. Something's been changed or something's been lost. So there's no damage. Of course, if we lost one blockchain and it was necessary to replace it, we just take one of the 100,000 copies and put it back into whatever system lost the blockchain. Okay? But so information cannot be changed. It's immutable. And information cannot be lost because it's everywhere. Okay? And that's the decentralization part. And the transparency, I didn't put that in this lecture. To be transparent means everybody can see, everybody can watch. And that's because, let me go in here. That's because we have that ledger all over, sitting in computer systems all over the world. The only problem might be an asteroid, okay, where some cataclysmic Earth event that destroys all the electrical power in the world. Then we might be in trouble. This means that if any single copy of the blockchain was corrupted, I want you to know that word. That means broken. If something is corrupted, it is damaged, it is broken, corrupted, damaged, broken, or at least lost in any way, there would always be a valid copy somewhere else. Okay, and that is one of the first benefits of being decentralized. Not centralized, but remember we talked about the government banks or being a centralized money, centralized currency. We're decentralizing our currency. We're giving it to so many people to take care of that we don't have to worry about one person trying to take control of it. And next, another benefit. The data is transparent. There's that word. The data is transparent. And transparent means, I should say the information. Excuse me. I should say the information, not the Shea data. I'm not sure. But the information is free for everybody to see. And imagine we're at a soccer game. The team elephant beats the team giraffe. Now, you can't go home and tell your mother that Team Giraffe won because Team Giraffe didn't win. Everybody there saw Team Elephant was the winner. So you've got 100,000 people who saw Team Elephant win and Team Giraffe lose. So Team Giraffe, maybe he wants to, somebody from Team Giraffe wants to impress a girl. She says, how did the game go last night? Oh, we won. Really? Because the TV said, or the 100,000 people said, you lost the game. Okay, so that's transparency or being transparent. The simple volume. Basically, the whole world can know your transaction. So you cannot cheat or back out of a transaction. You can default. Now, default means I made a promise and I legally can't keep it. And I might have to go to prison, but that makes it legal. Do you realize I didn't uphold my deal, not because I cheated, but because I couldn't. Now we have to go to court and the legal system will take care of everything and there will be penalties, but it's different from trying to cheat or back out. You can't cheat or back. You can't say that I didn't say that. You can't say I didn't make that deal. That's not the money that's not the price we agreed on. You see, you can't say that because everybody's watching. And finally, that same distributed network could be used for verifying and validating everything that's happening in the blockchain. That's called data mining. We won't get into that now. But that means that every time we do anything, every time we have a new person entering the system, making transactions, all the computers in the world are watching it and verifying and validating the truthfulness of that transaction. And any changes or anything that the system might be doing that's part of the system, I don't know that deep inside the system, but anything that is going on, any changes that are being made are being validated not by one person or even one computer, but by millions of computers all over the world. And that's what makes it, because the hashes across all the systems all over the world have to be 100% exact. If something is not 100% exact, it can't come into the system. And if it can't come into the system. And if somebody does break one small part of the system, that whole thing will be thrown out because it doesn't match. So it's simple, but a little bit complex, but at the same time, very simple and very brilliant idea. One last point, just like any currency, which we talked back in the beginning, what makes the currency work is the faith of the people. Okay? Just like any currency, whether it's centralized or decentralized, it doesn't really matter. The success depends on the faith of its users. Its success depends on the faith of its users. And of course, there have to be enough users. Okay? If people believe that others will accept Bitcoins, it's a currency. And it will remain a currency. And it will be a useful currency, even though it's digital. Okay, so as long as people believe Bitcoin will always be around, but now, it's like the stock market or anything else. Will it always be high? Will it always be low? Is there some reason people will stop believing in Bitcoin? I think Elon Musk took care of that recently during the COVID. It was during the COVID problem that he went out and bought the $1 billion of, I forget how much it was, of Bitcoin. And suddenly it legitimized him and others too, of course, but it legitimized. Legitimize means it made it real. Suddenly everybody trusted Bitcoin. Well, if did I say Tesla? Elon Musk. If Elon Musk trusts it, we should all trust it. And, but how long? This is still very new. If we look at the history of the world, this kind of digital ledger or blockchain technology, digital money, it's all new. In the history of the world, it's not really new. It goes back to 2009, I believe. But will it stay around? There's a good possibility. If people can understand the way it works and understand the security of such a system. Now, what I did not investigate was, the whole mining data. There are some problems because it takes so many resources, so many computers, and it uses so much processing power and so much electricity, that some people are starting to think that that's going to have to be fixed. Before we can be sure that Bitcoin is going to be around forever. That's an entirely different topic. But I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this webcam lecture. Thank you very much.